Hello, flower lovers. I have received my spring bulb order, bulbs that will be going into the ground now and flowering next year in the spring and early summer. And I thought it might interest you to know what I've ordered this year. So I thought I would do a box opening with you. Maybe this will interest absolutely no one. I don't know. It's an interesting year for me because I have ordered so few bulbs this year. So just a little bit of a different looking year this year, but I'm excited to show you what it is that I have ordered and talk about some of the ins and outs of growing some of these bulbs, from tulips to narcissus to ranunculus. So let's dig in and see what it is that I ordered. I actually can't remember what I ordered because when we put our wholesale order in, we order it about 6 months before we get it. We're ordering before some of our spring bulbs have even flowered, which is really hard to think about when you're in the middle of farming and you're knee deep in your tulip field, to be thinking about what sort of volumes and what sort of varieties you want to be ordering to deal with a full year later. But that is just the nature of wholesale and getting your orders in and getting a good selection. So anyways, thankfully I've been at this for enough years that I have a good idea of what it is I want to be dealing with come spring. And we have made massive changes as we've gone through each year to figure out exactly what is worthwhile, what we don't want to do. So let's dig in and see what it is that I've got. All right, first things first, I have borrowed a flower bucket to put my GoPro on so that I can actually talk to you. So it looks like we are good. All right, the first box. And honestly, I think my motivation for doing this unboxings is less about what I'm going to reveal in the boxes and more just about chatting with you about some of the ups and downs of spring bulbs, some of the ups and downs of growing some of these things, and which things can be disastrous and some of the challenges. So that is more why, I think. So let's see what we got. All right, so Allium Purple Sensation. So this is the large purple ball allium, not this large actually. It's more like a nice maybe 4-inch diameter. I already have a bunch of these and they've perennialized quite well for me, but not perfectly. And it's such a valuable one for me because it flowers for me in time for Mother's Day most of the time. And Mother's Day is one of the most important flower holidays that I do try to hit, even though Mother's Day is quite early in the season for us and there is not a lot going on flower wise. So this is one, if I can find perennials that'll just come up for me and I don't have to fuss with them and start them early indoors and things like that, this is one that does it for me. So I have ordered another one. Now these lots, they tend to be about 100. If it's daffodils, it's about 75, but the alliums, I've got 100. And yeah, not much more to say about alliums except that not only are they great fresh, but they also dry really beautifully. So it's never really a bloom that is wasted for me. They also have a really awesome vase life. And yeah, it's just important for me to keep having those in my garden. Next one looks like an allium. Let's see. Yes, this is nigrum. So this is a white one that I grow. It's not as tall. However, it's a beautiful white, sort of a semi-dome shape. And by the way, I have a video on my alliums showing how they bloom, which order they're blooming in, when are they available to me. That may be helpful to you if you are thinking of doing alliums. This one has not naturalized super great for me in the place where I placed it, which is sort of not the best place because it is more clay soil, more wet. And I just don't think alliums want to or appreciate being set into wet, boggy soil through the winter. So I had ordered more of this and I'm so grateful that I did because now I'm doing a wedding around the time that this one will flower. Fingers crossed. And it's white and my wedding is not purple. My wedding is definitely into the whites and the peaches. And so this one will probably come in super handy for me this year. And the stem length is actually often long enough for bouquet work, but if it isn't long enough, the great thing about the wedding is I don't always need super long stems. I should have thought about me standing here hunched over like this before I started filming. This is kind of awkward for me. Hopefully I can get through this. This next one is the tulips. This is black parrot. Now here's the crazy thing. I only am growing 200 tulips this year. That's it. We have scaled back over the last few years on tulips, and there's so much to talk about with tulips. I think that they are a great crop if you enjoy them. They are so labor intensive, and it's such an intense time. Like if you can't be around your farm during tulip blooming season, if you can't be like feet on the ground available to your tulips, you can have disastrous results, because once they start blooming and once it heats up, they go crazy, and you have to harvest basically multiple times a day. So it's really a crop that I wouldn't recommend getting into if you can't, or someone that works for you can't be really on the ball and watching that crop. And then yeah, they're just really labor intensive. They can be stored, which is great. And the reason why I still grow them, again, I'm trying to hit Mother's Day with a good quality tulip crop, but also I like to grow a few of them at least, because I specialize in more luxury gift bouquets, special order bouquets, and sometimes a bit of weddings. And so it is handy to have some. But it's not a crop that I want to focus on lately in my life. We started out with probably our first year was probably about 1,000 tulips, and then we ramped it up the next year and grew like 5,000 tulips or something crazy. And that year went really well, but it's a full-time job for about a month. I don't have a problem selling tulips. They sell really well. And I even sell them for a lot more than what the grocery stores sell them for. So they're doable that way, but still, just for the labor time, I'm just not convinced that they're totally worth it. So yeah, I think if you're thinking about getting into tulips, maybe start small and just see how it goes and see what your market is going to be like and see how you like them. It's a whole learning curve with storing them. And you really need to be able to store them, because once they come on so fast. You have to have a cooler. You have to have a way to cool them. So don't even try like a huge amount if you don't have some way to store them, because the turnover from harvesting them to getting them out the door is significant. You really need to be able to have a way to hold them until they're going out. So yeah, hopefully I didn't scare any of you. And if I did, I hope it's just, good advice. And actually it's the fall now, so you have lots of time if you're in the Northern Hemisphere to prepare now that I've mentioned those few things. But like I said, I do like to grow a few. My favorite tulips personally are parrot tulips. I love them. Also, they tend to seem to naturalize pretty well, and I'm starting to experiment more and more with that. And the black parrot is, I know, one of my absolute latest tulips that I've grown to flower. So it gets me a lot closer to Mother's Day. So that is the goal. And to go with it, this year I have a peony yellow. I love peony tulips as well. They're just gorgeous. They're just glorious, beautiful. And I don't really see the point for my market of growing tulips that are sort of ordinary. I just don't think they need to be special. And that is where I can capitalize on the profits, because I'm selling something a lot more special and unique. So that is the tulips. And again, one more bit of advice. Like I said, I could probably talk for hours on tulips. Another thing is, when you're getting to know them, they all, like every single variety has a different ideal harvest time. And so like I one year grew like 40 different varieties, which is smart in the sense of capturing an entire tulip season, because tulips, if you get the right ones, earlies, mids, and late flowering, you can go for 6 weeks. And if you're using a hoop house, you could go even for more season extension. So I have done it that way. 40 different varieties of tulips when you're growing only like 100 of each one. I probably wouldn't recommend that, because every single variety is another variety to get to know. Like you'll read stuff like, oh, the double ones, you harvest them this way, and the single ones, you have to harvest them when there's just the tip of color showing or color crack. But I have found that each breaking that down even more, each type of tulip each variety in that type. So of the peony tulips, each one of them still has its ideal time, and you have to actually get to know each one and sort of let a few flower and ripen before you can kind of know like when exactly to harvest that particular one. And so the more that you have, especially like for me, like I said, so I'm growing in about 100 at a time, and then it's just crazy making to try to keep up with that many different pieces of knowledge in your head. So say I was growing 20 varieties, but 200 of each, that would actually be way more efficient right there. So you see what I'm saying? So anyways, another bit of advice. Okay, other box. This is like all the exciting stuff. So I have hyacinths. I love hyacinths, and I love these as a cut. This is, oh yeah, Gypsy Queen. It's a peachy colored one. You know how I feel about peach. If you don't, watch the video on peach cut flowers. Peach is just a great, versatile, very useful color because it blends so well with so many different colors. So it really helps us when we have cutting gardens. And again, now I might fiddle with these ones this year because now that I have this wedding and I happen to have ordered that particular hyacinth, it'd be really nice to have those hyacinths for the wedding, which is not until early June, which is kind of late for hyacinths. But I have in the past stored them in coolers and delayed their bloom time. So I may play with that a little bit this year. We shall see. Another one is daffodils. So this is, oh yes, oh no, Dalmazo. So by the way, I have a daffodil video as well. I love bulbs apparently. The Dalmazo is a gorgeous, tall, fragrant, creamy colored double daff with a peachy center. So basically all the good things. Like there's nothing bad to say that I can about this daffodil, and I loved it so much. I trialed it last year, loved it. So this will be my second year. So I have my existing ones and I wanted more because I wanted to guarantee that I would have some, and I haven't trialed them long enough to see how well they naturalize in my field. And by the way, you may have caught that if you watched, I think, my last video, because I just sort of touched on it, but I actually dug up all of my daffodils this fall. I am going to transition them probably to growing into crates just to help deal with the weed management. Really, it's about the weed management, but there are areas in my flower field that are not the best for daffodils as well. As similar with the alliums, we're having some heavy soil, we're having some water sitting there in the winter, and certain varieties, like most of mine have been great, but a couple, 2 or 3 varieties I've had big losses on with my daffodils. So I want to transition them, and I just also, because in terms of digging them up, so the nice thing about daffs is you plant them and then you leave them, and you can leave them for a few years before you would want to dig them up and divide them and give them more space. So I love that about daffodils. But I did the digging and I don't want to dig it again. So another reason I'm growing in crates is to A, weed control, but B, hopefully, well, 3 reasons. B, hopefully to reduce my losses on certain varieties, and then C, to not have to ever trench out and dig out the field again. So yes, so those ones I highly, highly recommend. And I have more daffodils here that I order. Oh yes, okay, these are not a cut. These are tete-a-tete boucle, which is like a little tiny double yellow dwarf daff. And that is because I'm always playing around with offering certain pretty little things for like Easter season. And I kind of goes back to my time in Holland and some of the work they do. And I'm hoping to basically create little cute little designs with these, but with the bulb included. Cute little sort of decorative little arranged looking little planter pots, I guess. So yeah, we will see how they do, and if they do well, we will see what I make with them. All right, and this last one, oh right, Ranunculus. I should know that. I'm losing my brain right now. There's too many things going on. The Ranunculus, oops, I dropped one too. These are wild. I should know these because they look like little octopuses. They're wild corms. So Ranunculus, I am definitely not an accomplished Ranunculus grower. In fact, last year I was purchasing Ranunculus from a friend of mine who is an amazing Ranunculus grower. So we'll see how I do this year. I've got a color that will be wonderful if I could have it for the wedding I'm doing. And so hopefully I do better with them this year. What I'm going to do is try what my friend does. And by the way, I have to give a shout out, Pia at Slow Bloom Bouquets. You can find her on Instagram. She grows the most amazing ranunculus. She also just has like an incredibly beautiful cut flower garden and fields. And she starts hers after the harshest time in the winter, which for us is, we're warm here, by the way. We're zone 8B. So technically I should be able to start them in the fall, which is what I've always done. But I always just find they're so unhappy and I have huge losses. Also, the voles eat them up. So I'm going to try follow what she does. She starts hers not until February. She pre-sprouts. So they're not going in the ground until I think like late February, early March. So we'll see. I'd really like to do well with these this year because of my beautiful bride. These would be wonderful. So one thing I do know about ranunculus, again, thanks to Pia, is that if you can grow them, they are an awesome crop because they store for a really long time. They store well, they're long lasting, so many great qualities for a florist who's growing their own, and anything that isn't as perishable as other things is also always really, really valuable for someone like me. So hopefully I do well with those. We shall see. The spring will tell us. So that is everything that I have. And like I mentioned, I do have some naturalized tulips. I have tons of bulbs around here. I have a great variety of alliums. I think I have about 7 or 8 different ones. And I have 1,300 daffodils plus a couple hundred more now. And daffodils are a huge part of what I do. I really appreciate daffodils. Not such a huge fan of tulips, but they are still such a useful crop to have. I just find they are so labor intensive. I just am skeptical of where the profit margins are on there. I don't find for us that they have always been great. And when they are great, it's great. But we've also had the years where we've had massive losses on our tulips. And we're basically just working our butts off to try to reduce our losses and hopefully break even on our crop. So not fun, really not fun. Also, tulips hit right around baby goat season, right around kidding season. And it's just a lot for me. So not my favorite. I think if you do love growing tulips and you're good at it, that is awesome. And I would recommend trying any and all of these different bulbs because you won't know how these fit you, how they suit your business. You really won't know. So I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do. Hopefully I've given some food for thought, and hopefully you're trying things out for yourself and figuring out what actually works for you and your gardens and your flower business if you're a flower business owner. Hope this was insightful, and thanks for watching as I go through the boxes. I think bulb season's really exciting. There's something really exciting about putting these nuggets in the ground and how magical it is that they just do their thing and come up usually quite reliably for us in the spring. So something kind of exciting about tulip season. It makes it feel like Christmas around here.